Hey guys, today we'll dive into the dairy sector based off this paper I was reading from Mr. Miller regarding the revitalization of the dairy sector. The sector has been hit long ago and hasn't really recovered since. So what we did, we went to the Dairy Development Board to seek some information to see how we can develop a plan to move forward with the dairy sector. Hi, morning Mr. Parks.
Yeah, morning Mr. Brown, how are you doing?
You are currently the acting CEO for the Jamaica Development Board, right?
Certainly, yes, I'm acting.
I have a few questions for you today.
Yes.
What's the role of the Jamaica Dairy Development Board?
Well, Khalil, the Dairy Board really, its role is to function as an entity to develop dairy in Jamaica. It's a regulatory board. It advises the government and the minister on matters relating to dairy policy. We provide support for our dairy farmers and persons who are interested in dairy, and we provide a medium for the processors to operate with. As it relates to the milk powder regime, we do also assist with the regulation of persons who are importing milk powder to ensure that there is a balance between production and the importation of that product.
What kind of services you provide for your dairy farmers other than the whole policy role that you play?
Well, we provide support for our dairy practitioners. We provide extension services in terms of training. We also provide support services for RADA and Probably Jays, who was interfaced with our dairy farmers. In terms of new technologies, we access wherever we can get it and we impart it to our farmers. We also provide some amount of loan portfolio that we have funds available to our dairy farmers and processors to access loans to support their enterprises. It is done through the DBJ and the PC Bank and other lending agencies.
Okay.
So those are some of our services that we do offer at this point in time.
So currently, what is you have any flagship projects that you have running right now on the dairy board?
Well, our flagship program right now, despite the intervention of COVID, is our pasture development and support program, where we assist farmers, primarily dairy farmers, to develop their pastures. We import a lot of foreign seeds, grass seeds. You might hear about Mombasa and Malata to Cayman. And we provide the technical service to plant and to provide seeds for these farmers. As you recognize that we have a challenge with nutrition of our dairy animals, and therefore we seek to get the best that is available for our farmers so that their animals can be properly fed. We also are not limited in our support for our dairy, but we also support our small ruminant sisters, the goat and sheep farmers in Jamaica. We assist them with some amount of support. We have an innovation of using silage as a method of conservation, and that is something that we have rolled out over about 2 years now, where we actually provide that type of support in terms of equipment to provide silage for our dairy and our small ruminants.
What's the way forward with the dairy board now, Mr. Parks?
The plan, Mr. Brown, is to grow the industry. And we figure that we identified 3 planks that we figure that we need to grow. One, improve on productivity of our animals, and we are trying to have an innovative way through introduction of new genetics. At the same time, supporting the Jamaica Hope breed, which is our local indigenous breed. 2, to improve on the animals' nutrition and welfare, whether it's through cow comfort, whether it's through improved diets, whether it's through silage, and also to bring in new members, new players into the industry. And we are now targeting our educational institutions. We are trying to strengthen the dairy program at Case in Portland, Everton Parkers, Nakalva, Sydney Pagan. We are trying to engage NCU in a very innovative project to get them started into the dairy industry. Whilst we look into the private sector where the true juices and there are persons who support the industry as producers, there's a tremendous demand for fresh milk in Jamaica. And we see an opportunity where we can engage persons and provide them with technical know-how and to link our farmers to the marketplace to ensure that Jamaica is not only a service but indeed the Caribbean market. So we're trying to work aggressively with our schools to provide them with the infrastructure, with animals, and with the technical know-how to produce good Jamaican milk. We also aim to get from that project new entrants into the dairy industry and the livestock sector in general.
The interview with Mr. Parks went great, and even got the chance to meet Mr. Bryon Lawrence, our next legends in agriculture, who I met first at Case who taught me genetics, animal breeding, and he was also the project coordinator for the Dairy Development Board and director of research over the Jamaica nucleus herd. Let's hear what he has to say about the dairy sector. Hi, morning, Mr. Lawrence. How are you?
I'm fine.
Can you give me a brief description of who Mr. Bryon Lawrence is?
Well, Byron Lawrence has been someone who has been with agriculture quite a number of years. Being a graduate of Nakalpa Agricultural School and the Jamaica School of Agriculture, University of the West Indies, and other tertiary institutions. And I have worked at Bodles as a research officer, actually leaving as director of research, responsibility for the Jamaica Hope nucleus herd. And then I moved on to the Dairy Development Board in 2009, 2008, 2009. I left the Jamaica Dairy Development Board in 2018, and I'm now back as a sort of consultant, assisting them in some efforts that they have requested of me.
So, Mr. Lawrence, I know you do a lot of work at Bodles and the Jamaica Hope. Can you give us your view of the Jamaica Hope and its influence on the dairy sector?
Well, the Jamaica Hope has its inception from the work done by, my understanding is a gentleman by the name of Cousins, and then followed by T.P. Lecky, resulting in the development of a breed of dairy cattle that is suitable to our situation in Jamaica, challenging environmental influences and things like that. It, from my understanding and from my knowledge, has been a very critical part of the Jamaica's dairy industry. I'm not too sure that we have followed through those who had responsibility, and maybe even now those who have responsibility for the continued development of the breed to be what it is supposed to be as a high-producing dairy breed within tropical environmental situation. I think in the beginning we were following what was expected in terms of animal improvement. We somehow lost the plot somewhere along the way, to the extent where nobody really now knows exactly what the situation is the real status of the Jamaica Hope as a breed of cattle, and what is its potential. I would expect that we would have carried out the basic requirements for the improvement, genetic improvement of the breed, by way of having systems in place like recording systems by which you select animals, management system to accompany the selection, and the improvement of the breed, and a whole host of activities that one would expect that is associated with maintenance of a breed and continued development of a breed.
So, Mr. Lawrence, what would you say would be the key features of the Jamaica Hope that you think could make it a commercially viable breed, from your experience?
Well, from my experience, it has to be competitive in being cost effective to rear a Jamaica Hope animal for what it is supposed to do, which is producing milk. From my personal experience, I think the breed has what it takes to be competitive. It can certainly produce milk in a very competitive manner. It is very hardy. Basic. My understanding of the potential of the breed is such. I think we have not gone, as I mentioned previously. We have not been. Systems are not put in place so as to maintain the breed as a effective and competitive dairy breed. The use of sires that there's not, well, put it this way, the recording that I spoke about earlier is not in place. So most of the things that are being done are being done on a very haphazard manner. There's no systematic approach to effecting genetic improvement of the breed. And as you know that the genetic improvement constitutes about 30% of the animal's potential to generate milk, and the environmental influences that really impact on that genetic potential has not been forthcoming in terms of appropriate management systems put in place to sustain the breed as a producing entity. And that's basically the limitations that really exist.
So, Mr. Lawrence, from your experience when you were managing the board's nucleus herd, what was the animal's average, milk yields or production parameters at that point?
My experience that in terms of productivity, that I've seen animals giving, well, the herd averaging in the region of 12 quarts, the million quarts, which is about, put it 12 liters now, percent. But it is a very important 30% in that it's a permanent improvement, and it is also cumulative. The impact of the environmental influences allow the animal to express its true genetic potential. And if you don't have the appropriate feeding systems in place, ensuring that animals have access to ad libitum water on a continuous basis. We are fighting a losing battle. Experience with the breed also is that in terms of longevity, it is probably comparable to its mother breed, because Jamaica Hope is a synthetic breed, right? And it's about 80-85% Jersey. Very produces very extended life lifespan, and the animal can survive over an extended period of time, then you have less recourse to getting replacements for the animal. So therefore it becomes very cost effective. It's very hardy in terms of, you know what our conditions are like in terms of thermal exposure and exposure to external parasites and internal parasites. But although that's a limiting factor, once we have the proper management systems in place, then the system should negate the adverse impact of those occurrences. So once we can get those in place, then we should be on our way. The breed is as being what it is supposed to be. But I'm not too sure where we are now, if we are on the way to really realizing that objective. Because as I said, the breeding, I don't think there's a breeding program that is in place. I don't know. I'm not saying that. I suspect that there isn't. I'm making reference to the nucleus, right? The management, I'm not too sure how good the available management system are the one that is now in place, or whether it is, if it is consistent with having an effective herd producer, you know. So that are some of the limitations that exist.
So Mr. Lawrence, with the issues facing the Jamaica Hope regarding the breeding program, a comprehensive nutrition program, how do you think that we can actually, move forward as a sector with this breed?
Well, what we firstly have to recognize where we are, and then try to correct or circumvent the limitations that we now have. We now have to have a breeding scheme or a breeding program put in place. We have to have the appropriate management systems, whether in terms of feeding and husbandry management, put in place so as to negate the limitations that exist. And I think what we need to do, firstly and foremostly, is to put a recording system in place, because you cannot manage things that you can't measure, right?
Right.
So therefore, we need to have a system of recording put in place, so we can identify our better animals, and therefore, in so doing, we can, after identifying our better animals, we select from the best of those animals that we have identified. And then we can only select on the basis that we have something on which to select, which is you need to define define the animal's breeding value, so to speak, its potential as a breeding animal. And then you rank the animals according to that, whatever criterion is used to determine its breeding value. You rank the animals, and you select the better animals as parents of the next generation.
Yes.
Once you have done that, and as I said initially, breeding is very permanent. It's not and very cumulative. It builds on what was done previously. And then we need to have the management systems in place to augment the breeding effort, because you need to have the animals being able to express their true potential. And that's how you're going to identify your preferred animals to be used as parents of the next generation. There's an approach that I see that is has been undertaken by many many farmers, where they bring in semen for use on maybe Jamaica Hope or whatever it is, and that is cross-breeding. No, you cannot expect no more than in terms of production traits, and here we're talking about milk production. You cannot expect more than 3% gain, and that is gain from doing that, what you're doing, right? And we are talking about genetic improvement. That is not genetic improvement, that is merely trying to exploit heterosis. And heterosis, as I say, you're not going to get more than 3% as it relates to production traits.
Okay.
Certainly, with respect to health and fertility status and probably longevity and traits that have very low heritability, you get something, some response from crossbreeding. But I don't think that's what you're really looking for. You're really looking for production. So if you want production, you really need to improve the herd genetically. And that can only be done by breeding and selection within the breed itself.
In the breed itself, yes, yes. So we decided to dig a little deeper in this dairy sector and went to Dr. Paul Jennings, our third legend in agriculture, who was there at the beginning of the Dairy Development Board inception. So Dr. Jennings, you're the father of the Dairy Board. Why would you say that?
Well, I don't find the father, probably surrogate also, because to be quite honest, the concept of the Dairy Board actually came out of a consultancy that we had from the Commonwealth Secretariat, Commonwealth Fund for Technical Cooperation, Dr. Ram Aneja. So he came in '97, and they had a report. They did a report. So all this time we had now gone into trade liberalization, right, since 1992. And that had a crushing effect on the dairy sector, largely because prior to that, the dairy was not really protected by any tariff structure, so to speak. What we had in about 86 or 87, they maintained parity between milk powder import price and farm gate price of milk. So that means that the processor ought to have been indifferent to the source of raw material. And that would have been easier to manage because all those imports then were centralized through what was known as the Commodity Trading Company. Technically, it was supposed to have removed the kind of price gouging that comes through cereal markups and so on. So that was the situation that we were faced with. We had reached a peak in terms of milk entering the formal trade of close to 39 million liters.
Nice.
In 1992. And by 1997, that had tumbled down to 22 million liters.
Wow.
And it just kept going down and down. As the main person involved with dairy on the production side and with my forays into the policy side, I was made the counterpart for Dr. Aneja. And so I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the contribution of Dr. Aneja. So the Dairy Board really was set up in 1999 by Cabinet Fiat. Dr. Aneja spoke with Everton Parkers, who was then the permanent secretary. Everton, coincidentally, was a very keen supporter of the dairy sector. Panita thinks I'm the best person to take on this job, and I saw it as a sort of lifeline at the time, because I was really getting frustrated in R&D. You were starved of resources to do anything meaningful. As a matter of record, it took 10 years for the Dairy Board Act to be finally promulgated.
10 years.
Yeah. There are some things we left on the table. The whole consciousness of the school feeding program, right, as the potential platform for resuscitating the dairy sector. Farmers can't escape criticism for their lack of loyalty to their own institution. But I underutilize the resources that are allocated to dairy farms very badly.
Dr. Jennings, in closing,
yes.
what do you think is the most important steps that we should take now to move the Jamaican dairy sector forward? With the current situation that we're in, what would be your key focus?
No, let me tell you, it's a policy issue.
Policy.
Right? It is a policy issue. And you talk to anybody, right, who have money to invest, and they will tell you that they will not invest their money in agriculture until they have some assurance, right, that they'll have some protection for their investment.